Hey guys, it's Bo here. This isn't the beginning of this entry, but like I forgot to actually include this in the actual entry, but I just wanted to include a few scenes from uh, from my video, or rather from my where I am today. Right. So today I'm in a place called Haynes Park, which is in it's kind of in between Romford and Upminster in East London. And I was just here exploring, like I said in some of the other entries where I've done this. I like kind of going around and like exploring different places in London occasionally, like particularly when it's a good day, right? And another reason is going to be explained in my entry as we kind of go into it after this little intro, right? But like, yeah, I was just thinking that like, well, seeing as I did go for a walk and I recorded some footage, like it'd be a shame if I didn't use it in the entry. And seeing as this entry is going to be a LEGOMOBO, I was like, hey, why not include it and give you guys something different to look at, as opposed to just looking at my face in my car all the time, right? So, yeah, so I thought that I would just do that, and yeah, uh, yeah, that's the reason. So basically, yeah, so cool. Just a few shots there. So yeah, without further ado, guys, thank you for checking that out. But like, yeah, we'll go into the entry now. Hope you enjoy it. What is up, guys? And welcome to another Virginian vlog. How you all doing? I'm okay. A bit sweaty as usual because it's hot. Summer equals hot, I suppose. But anyway, hope you're doing well. I guess I'm planning on releasing this entry the day after my last entry. So this will be a Sunday entry. I don't usually go that ham anymore with these entries. There used to be a time, once upon a time, towards the earlier kind of part of these entries, or I should say my YouTube career as a vlogger, like I would kind of release these like all at once, 4 episodes during the week, and it's like I can't do that anymore because I have commitments and I just don't have the energy for that anymore, I suppose. But regardless, I am doing a LEGOMOBO, right? And I do these occasionally, like when I feel like them, so that I can kind of just get things off my chest and also fill you in with what's happening in case you were interested, right? So like, it's I guess it's kind of like a self-indulgent entry, so you know what to expect. However, I will say that it is somewhat related to what I talked about in yesterday's entry, right? So like if you're currently kind of having any issues with just depression really, right? Depression and setbacks and just feeling down on yourself and being anxious and not very hopeful, then maybe you can relate to this entry, and also you might be able to hopefully feel a bit better after this entry, right? So shit's hard, man, right? In yesterday's entry I kind of gave the positive kind of outlook on how you should approach being a light worker and doing your own thing, and yeah, you should, and like we all need to hear a message of you should you should keep going, and that there are steps you can take, right, to try your best to hear what your heart and soul are telling you, because sometimes you can't hear that shit, slash you just you can't afford to listen to that shit sometimes, particularly as you're older, right? If you're younger, then like you have at least you still have your youth, and you
still have that energy and that innocence, to that kind of wide-eyed like enthusiasm that young people have, right? I'm talking about if you're in your teens to early 20s, right? If you're lucky enough to be in that age range, then like, yeah, you still have your youth and your energy, you know, so that's great, right? And you should, during that time, like really kind of push to not only build the life that you want and to pursue the kind of career slash life purpose that you want, right? And to really kind of immerse yourself in that, but at the very least push for self-awareness, right? Because again, right, you know, I've said this in varying forms, but really the thing that kind of stands in the way of us light workers, or I say light workers, really people who kind of cannot really go the standard path of going through a path of education, right, even though many of us have done that, and then kind of being thrust in the workplace and then kind of working towards something where you're just in a stable position and you start a family and you can have mortgage, right? You know, just some of us just don't resonate with that. In fact, it's agony as someone like this to like force yourself to A, be part of it, and B, envision yourself doing that for the rest of your life, right? But as such, you know, there's not really a message out there that's really that powerful for people like you and I, right? And don't get me wrong, there's tons of people, you know, contradicting myself a bit here, but like there is a voice for everyone out there, right? Particularly if you look hard enough, right? You look on YouTube, you can look on whatever, right? Whatever social media platform, and you can find people who like are doing something and are representing something that you're like, oh my god, thank God that this person is here because they inspire me to do my own thing, right? But you know, the bare fact of it is that like, you know, you go through life and like there is very little in your day to day that inspires confidence and comfort in you to do what you know you need to do, right? You know. And so, yes, you know, like I'm here, other people are here, and I'm sure if you're doing a similar thing, you're here to be that kind of beacon, to be that anchor for people like you and I, who desperately like, you know, who desperately needs like a voice, an anchor, to kind of like give them permission and to make them feel better about pursuing a path that most people wouldn't endorse or understand. Right? So that's hella important. And that's why I say this thing a lot, right? That's why I keep harping on about heart-centeredness and following your heart and being sensitive. But it's hard. You know, it is hard. And it doesn't get any easier. You know, because not only am I older now, but like I'm also just, you know, I have less, and part of this is because I chose to do this, but like I have more adult responsibilities now. You know, like I have to work, I live mostly by myself, so I have to like do chores by myself, right? And, you know, if I come home over the weekends where I work mostly on a side gig thing, right, to keep myself alive, and I know that if I change my bed sheets, right, and I know this sounds very like, I know this sounds like the kinds of problems that a university student would have, and not someone who's almost 30, but like, it's like, hey, it makes a difference, right? You let's say you work the entire day, which I often do over the weekends, right? And I come home at like 11 p.m. and like I haven't changed my bed sheets in like 2 weeks, right? Because I've been focusing on other things, right? And I know that like if I don't, then like I'm gonna have a terrible night's sleep because like you don't think about this shit when you're a kid, but like when you don't like when you don't clean your flat or your house or like you don't look after your hygiene and things like that, then like you feel shit, right? But like you just think you feel shit. That's all you feel. But the reason that you feel shit is partly because like your living environment is kind of becoming a bit filthy, right? You know, so like you have to change your bed sheets, right? You know, I used to like be like, oh, who cares, man, right? But now I'm like, I'm gonna do it because it means I'm gonna have a good night's sleep, and that's gonna have a knock-on effect on me tomorrow. And it's just my life versus like even a couple years ago, right? You know, even when I was like 28, right, 27, 28, I still hadn't gone to this stage yet, right? And you might call me lucky in that sense. You might call me unlucky, right? But the fact of the matter is, like, you know, 2 years ago, right, I didn't feel nearly as much responsibility. I was getting there, right? You know, when I was at 28, I was much more responsible than when I was 20, right? But like now it's like, okay, like I can't afford to be too complacent with like with responsibilities and like lifestyle and maintenance for my lifestyle and chores and errands and things like that, right? So that has an effect on you, right? Because it takes your energy, right? And like at the end of the day, right, you know, you do what you have left in terms of energy and focus, and you try your best to do your craft, right? You know, and that's it, right? It's it's a lot of hard work, right? But you know, having said that, it's not all doom and gloom, right? You know, hence yesterday's entry, hence the majority of my entries, you know, that I make about you, like just keep going, you know, just keep going, please. You know, you owe it to yourself, you owe it to the people you love, you owe it to society, right? Today, like, I watched a video, right, and this is so out of character for me, right? I occasionally do this. I occasionally, like, you know, maybe it's the scatterbrain, creative, open-minded, you know, person that I am, right, you know, as all light workers and artistic, creative types are, right? Like, I delve into something that is really kind of beyond what I'm used to, right? And, like, I watched an interview, or a few interviews, by a person called XXX Tentacion, right? And if you're... you might know who he is, or you might not, it really depends, right? But, like, he's like this rapper dude, rapper guy, right? He's like a rapper, you know, like face tattoos, you know, like really elaborate, like dreadlock hairstyle, you know, like bad boy kind of a persona and front, right? And he is actually unfortunately dead, right? He was allegedly murdered, right? I mean, this is what all of everywhere is saying, but like he's allegedly dead because he was murdered. He was shot. I think it was a couple months ago. But anyway, yeah, like I mentioned this before on my entries. Like I am not street, right? I mean, look at me, right? It's funny because like the job I do, which is food deliveries, is quite a street smart kind of a job, right? Because you're out and about and like you have to kind of be wary of like things because you're moving from place to place, right? It's not like you're in an office, right? That's funny, but like and weirdly, you know, it's you know, I say weirdly, but like not really, you know, it makes sense, but like being someone as gullible as myself, you know, traditionally, I'm like super gullible, super careless, super unaware of my surroundings. I may have light level Asperger's syndrome or like autism, you know, but like doing this delivery thing has improved my street smarts, right? I'm just more in touch with not only my surroundings and like, you know, kind of just like situations in public, but I'm also more aware of my body, right? You know, I have been in office jobs, but like my most recent jobs have all been kind of like physical blue collar, as opposed to white collar jobs, right? So like over the years, I've become kind of more like in touch with my body and like moving and like, you know, things of that nature, right? You know, it's just taken me out of my head and out of my feelings and into the real world. And like that's actually a cool thing, you know. But regardless, I am not street, right? Like I just don't resonate with the whole gangster mentality, right? Some people do, you know, a lot of people do, right? You know, if like the current kind of like just explosion of like hip hop culture is anything to go by, right? People super resonate with that shit, like, you know, being gangster and being like kind of like street and fashionable and cool and like badass and like that kind of a vibe, right? Like a lot of people resonate with that, but I unfortunately do not, right? Like that is kind of one of the things that's furthest away from who I am like at my core. But like I watched this guy and I've known about him in the past, right? And he said one thing in one of his interviews, which is the most important thing is that you try. The most important thing is that you try in whatever it is that you do in life, right? And it's like that's not the only thing he said that's impressed me, right? Out of all of these like new rapper kids, particularly, you know, these kids who like kind of come up on social media and have like, you know, like a global kind of fan base by the time they're like 20, right? Like he's one of the ones that I actually weirdly respect the most, right? Because he was onto something, right? And he had like he had a head that was screwed on, right? But it's just so happened that he like his whole background was in like was from the street, you know, hip hop, like or what hip hop espouses, right? You know, the street life and thug life and all that stuff, you know. And there is a saying which is that like you can take the person out of the ghetto, but it's much harder to take the ghetto out of the person, right? Even if you try your best to change yourself in that situation, right? It's difficult to like, you know, you have relationships that you have formed ever since you were a kid in those environments, and like just like a lot of shit is still kind of like behind you, even as you try to change yourself. And I feel, and I don't know him, right? And I'm just really mentioning him off of like an off kind of coincidence that I just happened to watch one of a few of his interviews today, you know, like yeah, you know, but you know, I don't know him, but like, you know, I'm guessing that he was trying to, you know, improve, but like, whatever, you know. In any case, like he said this thing, and like it's completely what I have arrived at too, right? It's like the most important thing is to try, right? You know, like while you're alive, while you're like struggling through life, you might as well try, right? You know, because what's the alternative? Like you could end your life, right? Because hey, like, you know, like as long as you're still here, right, and you're still struggling, then like you don't really have a choice but to be alive, right? And so anyway, like that's probably getting a bit kind of dark, but like, but it's real, you know, it's real. But like, but it's hard, is what I'm trying to say. You know, because it's just, it's a struggle, right? Because you're a sensitive person, and you're trying to connect with that sensitivity, because that sensitivity is what fills you with life force and gives you a reason to live, right? But you also live in a world where you have to answer to your family, you have to answer to your friends and acquaintances, you have to answer to to like the greater authorities of your teachers, your bosses, you know, people who are above you on like the social ladder, you know, people whom you respect and possibly want to take under your wing, whether as just like an older sibling type of a thing, you know, friendship, or indeed business or craft, right? And like, not only that, but like, there are so many dangers in life and threats and things that happen that you don't expect. You know, like, you have to work for the rest of your life, right? And like, if you're in a job, right, which is one of the reasons why I'm doing everything I can, but you know, if I absolutely have to go back to a job, I will. But like, until then, no thank you, right? Because it's like, hey, you work a job, right? You can't negotiate your rates, right? You can't negotiate your times, right? You know, like, you have to deal with like politics and like, you know, various kind of levels of engagement from your colleagues. Like, you yourself might be someone who doesn't really give a shit, right? You're just there to earn a paycheck. But other people do, and they look upon you like you're like this lazy asshole, basically. Right? Even if they don't say it or express it explicitly, you know they're thinking it, right? Or vice versa, right? I've been in both situations, right? I've been the lazy git, right, towards the beginning of my employment days, let's say, where, you know, when I was fresh out of uni, and like, you know, this, I'm a super duper graduate student and I can do no wrong because I have a degree, right? And it's like, no, right? And like, yeah, like, you can just tell people like, oh, stupid grad student, like, you know, thinks he's a shit, doesn't know like his head from his toes, right? But later on, I've been in situations where like I started to get engaged with my job because I'm like, hey, well, let me at least try to contribute and see what happens, you know, and at the very least, you know, it's going to make my working life a bit more interesting because, like, I've tried the whole, like, you know, just like trying to do the bare minimum like I did in school, right, most of the time, right? You know, but like that shit is like just weird, nerve-wracking because, like, you know, the people like hate you because you're a lazy bastard. And also, it's just like, you're just there and you don't know what the fuck you're doing, right? And it's just like a terrible feeling because, like, it's so boring and like unfulfilling and like waste of your time, right? So like, you're like, okay, maybe I can like adopt more responsibility. But like, then like you start to notice other people who are younger than you who are doing the same shit that you did when you were their age, right? And like, you start being like, oh god, like, what do I do? What do I do with this, right? And it's like, you know. And even if you manage to do what I've done and get out of the job into something that's a bit more flexible and like malleable to what you want, because now I can basically choose my working time, right? Like, I don't have a boss that decides my schedule based on the needs of the company, right? I just set my own times, working times, and I just do them, right? And it's so much better because like it's you're not like on a fucking tight leash, right? You know, you can actually have days where you can sit down and focus on what you want to do, as opposed to like, oh shit, tomorrow I might be on call for work, you know, I want to do this project, but like my brain's gonna explode, right? Because I don't know what to expect, right? You know, your your friends are too demanding of you, right? You know, shit breaks on you. You know, you don't feel like doing your craft. You know, it's like a million things, right? And you come back to this place, right? And this is where I am at the moment, which is why I'm making this entry, right? And fortunately for me, and I hope the same is true for you, you have gone through this, you know, falling down enough times that you're like, okay, I'm not going to give up, right? I'm not going to give up. Right? Because as long as I'm alive, I might as well try, right? The most important thing is to try, right? That's a fucking super duper, like, spot on thing to say, right? You know, regardless of who it comes from, right? But like, and you're like, okay, what do I need to do? Right? And I'm about to say something that might sound a bit weird and like creepy, right? But I think it'll have been in the title anyway. But it's time to pray. It's time to pray, and it's time to just break out of your routine for a second, right? And just find somewhere, sometime, to just be by yourself, be with your thoughts and like the chaos of your feelings, and just take a deep breath. And just take a deep breath. And just let the breath happen. You know, close your eyes if you need to. And just pray. And now, before I get into this a bit further, right? Before I round this off, by pray, I don't mean that you actually have to pray, right? I'm just using prayer as like an illustration for the process that I'm trying to describe here, right? Because prayer ultimately, you know, on the surface, it's like prayer to a god, right? Prayer to a deity, right? In a religion, right? But prayer itself, if you look at it from a less religious context, let's say, right, is a space, a process, a ritual where you connect with yourself and you pose yourself the question that has been plaguing you, right? Or you run through yourself internally, the things that have been bugging you and scaring you, and you wait and you hold space for it, and you ask for understanding. And eventually, either you get an answer, or you will be reminded of the answer. Like if you've been here before, right? If that makes sense, right? It's a thing where you just shut everything off, and you cleanse your mind, and you focus on your breath, because the breath is like the most fundamental. It's like the bridge between conscious and unconscious, right? Because you have conscious control over your breath to some degree. You don't have conscious control over, for example, your heartbeat, because that happens involuntarily, but you have control over your breath, and it's like the closest, it's like the bridge between what is conscious and unconscious, right? It is the bridge between your unconscious kind of status of being alive, like your body just like, you know, sustaining itself, and also like something that you can control consciously, right? So like that's why breath is important, right? So you focus on your breath, and you just sit with your feelings, right? Sit with your thoughts, and you wait, and you just breathe it in. And the intention, right, is that like you're waiting for understanding or inspiration to come in, right? You know. So again, disclaimer, right? I'm not telling you to, you know, become religious or something like that, right? You know, I'm not saying like look to religion, but like that might be the answer for you if like that's what you like, right? If that's what resonates with you, right? If you are yourself a religious person, then you'll already know this, right? But like for someone who isn't familiar with that, or maybe doesn't resonate so much with that context, right? Prayer is, again, it's not actual prayer, right? That's only an illustration I'm using, right? It's like you sit with yourself and you're like, okay, what am I trying to do here? What is it that I want? I want to champion what I find to be beautiful. I'm here to champion my love, what I find to be beautiful to my heart. Right? And there is all of this stuff that is extraneous, distracting, noisy, right? And unfortunately, it's also important. a.k.a. you're never going to be able to get rid of it, right? But you're here, right? You have purged everything for the moment, right? And you're focusing on your breath, right? Eating healthy helps too, right? Making sure you take care of your hygiene helps too, right? You know, this is what I call back to basics, right? You know, if like you're feeling depressed or you're unhappy or like whatever it is, right? Then like you need to ask yourself the question first and foremost, like, am I eating right? Am I exercising? Am I taking care of myself in terms of hygiene? You know, am I tidying my flat or my house, right? Because if those things are in disarray, then like you're making it harder than it needs to be, basically, right? And it's harder than you think, right? You know, Jordan Peterson says this, right? It's like, you know, tidy, like clean your room, right? It's harder than you think because it fucking is, right? Cleaning a room may seem like a trivial matter, but like it is not, right? In the sense that like it takes work, you know? Changing my bed sheets after a full day of work. How long does it take to change your bed sheets? Like 2 minutes. 2 minutes, right? Change the, you know, the mattress cover, change the pillow cover, change the duvet cover. It takes 2 minutes, right? It is not hard at all, but it's like you come home from a day, like, you know, and you're like, I could just fucking go to bed now, right? And sleep because I'm fucking exhausted, right? But I'm going to change my bed sheets, right? I'm going to burn a bit more willpower to do that, right? But once you've done that, right, you can go out, you know, like I do. I like kind of going out the house and just like going somewhere where I know I can kind of be by myself. You know, I like driving to places, right? And I just like tap into how I feel, what I think, but also where I want to be, right? So like this is the link between this entry and yesterday's entry, right? Is like you know those steps, right? Of like having a space where you express yourself, right, on a regular basis, you know, like a diary entry, vocal or written, right? And you regularly kind of tune into the things that you really love, right? And you know, you've become aware of those things, right? You form all of the categories and like you know like where those things are, right? And you just and because of that you can tap into the feelings more easily, right? And you just tap into those feelings, right? And you just tap into those feelings. And yeah. And you just think to yourself, you know, I want to connect with what I love, right? And you listen to the songs that you love while you're out. And you watch the shows that you resonate with. And you read the books that you love. And like you steep yourself in those feelings, right? And you ask yourself internally, amongst all of the chaos of like, okay, there's all the stuff I love, and then there's life, right? There's like, yeah, There's random shit, there's chores, there's family, there's friends, there's like mainstream opinions, right? You know, there's like there's like smart people considerations, like, how do I market myself better? How do I improve my skills, right? And all of that shit, right? You sit with that duality, that contrast, and you're like, okay, I'm gonna deal with that stuff. I know how to, and I'm gonna do it, right? But in this moment, for this day, for this week, however long it takes for me to like reach the next step, right? And of course now I'm giving it from the context of like, you're probably trying to do something, like you're trying to make something, right? But you have creative block or something, right? For however long you think it will take you, right? Just be like, okay, I'll deal with all of the admin at some point, right? But for now, maybe I'll do it now. Maybe I'll negotiate, so I'll do it now, and then like a couple of days, and I'll do it for a couple of days, and then like after that, I can like sit with myself and connect and pray, right? And the prayer that you're doing is, please connect me deeper with what I love. Give me the courage to champion what I love, Let me feel anxiety, which I do, and still guide me towards what I love, right? No matter how fragile or like, naive or futile it may seem, right? No matter how jaded I feel right now, no matter how much opposition people give me, no matter how much opposition I give myself, right? No matter all of the depression and despair and like negativity and like inability to focus my fucking mind for a second, right? With all of my like latest series of fucking bullshit happening to me, right? Things going wrong, like me not being there altogether, right? And just like being a basket case, right? Unable to focus. Let me still connect with what I love. And that's what I would do, right? Is you just pray, right? You pray. And then you try, right? You pray. And maybe you'll get an answer. Maybe your inner self will be like, okay, I'll give you what you need. I'll give you the courage. I'll give you the energy, the motivation. Go do what you need to do, right? But maybe you won't, right? But regardless of the outcome of you going out and trying to connect and like praying for courage and motivation and just that you have the strength and energy to move forward with what you want, right? You will know that at least you're trying. At least you did the prayer, right? Right? And that's the most important thing, right? That's why I respect XX Tentacion, or his nickname of just X, right? That's why like what he said is so profound. Like you have to try, right? And like even if you try, you might fail miserably, right? You might not get the answer you want. You might not get the motivation you want. You might still be like a little bitch, right? And a pussy, right? Without the strength to like move forwards, right? You might still be like this problem-ridden, like unfocused, unambitious, piece of shit. But you're trying, right? And it's okay if you fail today, right? Take the misery, take the pain, try again tomorrow, right? and it might work out tomorrow, right? Just like the sun just came out, right? You know, and it might fail tomorrow though. You know, that's an equal opportunity, like possibility. So if it fails tomorrow, guess what? There's the day after, right? And then after that, there's the day after, right? As long as you're alive, right? As long as your heart still beats, you know, both literally and for the things that you love, and for the vision that you have for yourself, the highest vision that you have, right? Not some fucking compromise, right? You know, there is still hope. There is still tomorrow, as long as you keep trying, right? And that, my friends, is what it means to pray. Right? Again, the word pray is not important here. Really, try is the most important thing. But trying is kind of vague. It's not really like something that's, you know, what does trying even mean, right? Trying means, right, on an emotional level, which is where everything starts, right? You can't control your emotions completely, right? Which is something I hope that's clear, like in my messages, right? Or either that, or like you know this already, right? It's like you like that you can control your emotions to an extent, and like to the extent that you can, you should kind of try, right? Because you know, I think we all agree that we want to try and spread more positivity than negativity, right? And to the degree that you can, you should, right? However, when you feel shit, you feel shit. When you're like, this is not going to work, that's how you feel, right? So what you do is you take that, right, and you break out of routine for a second, right? And you draw from all of the times that you connected with what you love, right? Which is what the last entry was about, right? And if you've been doing that, then you'll know what the feeling is you're trying to achieve, right? And like the pain you feel is the pain of not being there, right? This is like a teal swan-esque way of describing things, right? It's like the pain you feel, suffering, is due to the fact that there's a gap between, you know, your desire, right, where you know you want to be, or like, let's say your higher self, right, where your higher self is aiming you, and where you're currently at, right? So like, that's the gap that you want to like honor at these times. That's what prayer is about. That's what trying is about, right? Does trying mean like busting your balls and hustling? Kind of, right? Because you can't say that like you should just give up and just let, you know, just like surrender to whatever it is, right? Because you need to have some degree of intention in life, right? You need to have an idea of what you're trying to do, and also to consciously try to move towards that thing, right? You know, which is the thing that and like this is a bit controversial, right? I apologize, but like this is what most, and I don't know if it's the case anymore, but this is what most like law of attraction, like fanatics miss, right? They're like, oh yeah, I just need to focus on what I want, and like that, they get that part right, but it's like you have to then like consciously will it, and like whenever you consciously will something, aka you try, right, you will always be met with resistance and disappointment, right? Because things won't always go your way, right? So, given that though, should you just, you know, should you be like fucking smashing your head against the wall if it just isn't working for you? That's another no, right? That's another no, right? Because if, you know, this is when you like, when people like, you see people and they're just too like anxious, neurotic, you know, one-track minded, single-minded, you know, and like they cause pain for themselves and other people because they're too inflexible, right? All they know is like, I need to I'm gonna fucking succeed no matter what, right? You know, no matter what, I will impose my will on life and destiny itself, right? And it's like, that's not cool either, right? Because life is chaotic, right? But like, you choose more or less what you will fight for, what you will try for, right? And like, I'm guessing it's going to be, for most people, it's going to be somewhere like in between being a good person and being fulfilled like personally, right? Self-actualization, right? And everything else you try, you try, but you're not too like kind of like attached to the outcome, right? So yeah, so prayer, right, is like honoring that gap, right? Because you're here and and it sucks, and you want to be here where you want to be, right? So like you let what exists exist, right? You let it exist. And fundamentally, it's feelings. It's depression, it's anger, it's resentment, right? And as you're honoring that, you also look at where you want to be, right? And you try to merge those two energetically as much as possible. In the sense that, like, well, you're not trying to make them the same. Sorry, like, maybe that's a bad way of describing it, but, like, all you need to do is admit where you are, it sucks, but you admit it, right? Then you try to focus on where you want to get to, energetically, right? Which is why you connect with what you love, right? And so, like, if you've been connecting with that regularly, you'll already know what that feels like, right? So that's kind of already a help to you, right? So, yeah. But that, my friends, is how you do it, right? And it's not always successful, right? Really, that's another point I wanted to make, is like, you'll have shitty days, you know? You'll have shitty days. You'll have days where things don't work out, right? You'll fail. You'll be miserable, right? You'll like, no, like, it's like you'll be so frustrated because you're like, why can't I do it, right? Right? And like, you will hate yourself deeply, right? But there's always tomorrow, and there's always this moment right now where you can drop into prayer if you're ready for it. If you're not, then like, you can get to a point at some point in the near future where you can be, right? In the next couple of hours, right? Just like, put everything down, connect with how you feel, right? Because that's where everything springs from. And then eventually get to a place where you can partake in prayer, so that you can ask for the strength to see the where you want to get to, right? Because that itself is really the thing. Is like everything, like things are swamping that vision from your mind. You're trying to connect to that thing, but like everything else is distracting you away from it, right? So like, in that space, as you clear your mind and you focus on your breath, like, you're trying to like entrain on that thing that you've forgotten, right? On that vision, right? And you strengthen it that way, right? And then you ask from God traditionally, but really it's about yourself. You ask from within yourself, deep from within yourself, to give you the courage, the strength, and the continual energy to pursue your visions. And that, my friends, is my entry. I was gonna do another one, but I think I'm gonna head off. But cool. So I hope that was relatable. Yeah, and just want you to know that I'm there fighting alongside of you, and yeah, let's just keep going. We don't really have a choice, is kind of what I want to say, but also there's always going to be tomorrow. There'll be tomorrow. So cool. Until next time, guys, I hope you're doing well. And if you're not, well, I guess, yeah, we'll both be praying, I guess, for ourselves. But, yeah. But yeah, I will catch you in the next entry. If you have any comments as usual, or questions or anything like that, feel free to leave them in the comment section below. And yeah, I'll catch you next time. Until then, stay safe, stay you, stay passionate, stay loving, and stay you. Did I already say that? I think I did. Anyway, you get my point. Peace out, guys. Thank you very much for tuning in, and I'll catch you next time. Peace out.